What Zoro, Nami, and Frankie have in common? Besides the obvious fact of all of them being Straw Hat Pirates, of course, is the overwhelming need to tell the earlier history of all of them, to reveal their past. The same thing did apply for Sanji during the greatest part of One Piece's history before the whole Cake Island saga, and also to Robin, of whom we knew nothing about her life before Baroque works before the Enies Lobby arc. These Straw Hat members did join the crew without we knowing who their parents were they born and raised. It's told about Frankie's past that his parents were pirates and threw him out of the ship, and that's how he knew Icebug and Tom, the people from his earliest known past. That's clearly a cliffhanger, and the history clearly promises to tell this part later and reveal who these pirates, Frankie's parents, are. We're still waiting so far. We knew nothing about Zoro's past before he appeared in Koshiro's academy. Now anyone will say that Zoro's background is already revealed. In SBS Volume 105, the genealogy of Roronoa Zoro is revealed, and his parents' names are told: Roronoa, Erishur, and Terra. I don't accept that explanation. I'm a defender of the maybe eccentric concept that SBS is not One Piece. SBS is just what it is supposed to be, a space where the author answers questions from his fans. It is not part of One Piece as a fiction work. One Piece is a manga series. Nothing outside the manga is part of the work, no matter if it's product by the same author. Within the manga, we are presented to Shimatsuki Ashimu, a descendant of Ryuma, the greatest swordsman of all time in the world of One Piece, and one of the three daimyo imprisoned with Yamato in his childhood. Ashimaru do not resemble Zoro. He have the same drawing model of Zoro. His appearance is the exact same one as Zoro's. He is clearly, explicitly, supposed to be Zoro's father. It was later revealed, in the same SBS Volume 105, that despite the similarity, Shimatsuki Ashimaru and Roronoa Zoro have no genealogical connection whatsoever. That's obviously not the original intention for the character. So why the connection between Zoro and Ashimaru was overlooked during the Wano saga and Zoro's lineage revealed later by the author outside the manga? Wano saga was huge. There was a lot, and that means a lot of things happening. There was CP0, the Prisoner's Rebellion, there was Big Mom's returning, the revelation of Luffy's Devil Fruit's true power, there was Kazuki Oden's flashback, and the resolution of all loose ends left by it. Too many things to tell in one history. Even Zoro being a character from the very beginning of One Piece, telling his past was not a priority during the development of Wano Saga. But there would be no future opportunity of telling this history. Wano is the country of the samurais, and Zoro not only fights with 3 samurai swords, but besides Jinbe, he's the only one in the crew with a Japanese name. His connection with Wano country is howling. If his origins were not in Wano, that would be a huge flaw in the history. So it had to be made, but wasn't. And the author gave us that origin history outside the work for at least exist. For me, that's quite unsatisfactory. I still hope to see someday the Real intended Zoro's origin history, that Shimatsuki Ashimaru had a son, and how this son survived Wano's coup d'etat and ended in East Blue. The fact is, it's not like the author gave up on telling Zoro's origin history. He couldn't. Wano's narrative development went out of hand, and that also applies to One Piece as a whole. The flow of the history is now out of hand. And that brings us back to the other 2 straw hats mentioned in the beginning, Frankie and Nami. Nami was first seen being carried out by her foster sister, Nojiko, from a bleak village after a war, and the 2 being found by Belmere, Nami and Nojiko's foster mom. Nami's biological parents most likely died in that very war. But who were they? That, just like Frankie's pirate parents, screams to be told someday. But it probably won't. Not within One Piece original series. There's thousands of untold mysteries in One Piece. Many of them will kept unanswered by the series finale. And, as Zoro's example shows, even Straw Hat's backstories can be among them. One Piece is already huge in content. Over 1,000 chapters and many more, hundreds more, needed to close the history connecting all of its loose ends. That would take a lot of time in the author's life. And he clearly doesn't want it. Ode is dedicated to One Piece in a master level, but he is tired of working in the same history from literally more than half of his life. He have other projects. He wants to finish it as soon as possible, even if that's not exactly soon, but all the details that can be overlooked most probably will be. Nami and Frankie's origin histories, even with Frankie's being practically promised, will most likely be among them. And that doesn't mean we'll never see those histories. Not at all. One Piece is too big to end with its own end. After the manga is finished, there will be plenty of new One Piece material produced by other authors who are not Oda. The very same thing we see happening with American comics superheroes. Batman was created by Bob Kane back in the 40s, but Batman's most famous comic histories are not from Kane, but from other authors who did continue Kane's legacy, like Alan Moore and Frank Miller. That's not an exclusivity in the world of anime and manga, and not even in One Piece. Dragon Ball series, for being iconic, are getting new material even now, more than 1 year after the original author, Akira Toriyama's death. An untold history in One Piece, intended by the author, was told outside the original work. That's Daddy Masterson history, in the episode 50 of One Piece anime. Oda wanted the Straw Hats to enter the Grand Line in Chapter 100 for iconic reasons. So, there are no space left to tell this tale, important for Usopp because Logtown arc were too close to 100. But Oda didn't abandon the idea entirely and passed the baton to other artists who put in the anime. Same will be done in the future with several untold histories inside the One Piece huge world, including the origin histories of Nami, Frankie, and, I reinforce, Zoro, that was not told because SBS doesn't count. That will be the One Piece extended universe. It will be a reality in the next few years or decades. It's unavoidable. Some will say that One Piece is just Oda's work, and what Oda didn't make is not part of history, is non-canon. That's a valid point and is not a bad thing at all. That is what will allow us to have multiple histories. If Nami's parents weren't revealed during the original history, and almost certain wouldn't, that means we have no official Nami's parents, allowing other artists to make several different Nami's origins histories, with several unofficial parents in them. That would be amazing. I can't wait to see these histories becoming reality in future films, TV specials, or even in a new One Piece unofficial spin-off. Oda already gave the world so much culture to be worked with the One Piece universe. Charcators, powers, lore, places, concepts, there's plenty of cultural arsenal for other authors to work with when Oda finishes his job. This universe is too fan-favorite to not be expanded. It definitely will. One Piece will not end in its own end. Some fictional works did it through Calvin Hobbes, one of the more iconic comic strips of all times, have just the strips and nothing else. Did you ever notice there's no Calvin and Hobbes animated cartoon series? You won't find any stuffed Hobbes for sale in any toy shop, even Hobbes being a stuffed toy in its own world. Calvin Hobbes' author, Bill Watterson, doesn't want his work to be used to get tycoons richer, so he holds his authorial rights very straight. No works on his work allowed. What if Oda decides to do the same? Even in that case, I don't think he will have the same success as Watterson. Toei already have One Piece's copyrights, and much more money for lawyers than Oda in case of him reclaiming them. Toei is a company and it wants money. One Piece is too profitable to not be turned into something else after the end of the manga. The One Piece extended universe is unavoidable.